Imagine this: freight trains suddenly stopped, borders sealed, and a trade route worth billions completely cut off overnight. Poland has just blocked its border with Belarus, and that single move has collapsed Moscow's most important land bridge to Europe. This isn't just a border issue, it's a geopolitical earthquake. Russia's trade routes, China's cargo trains, and Europe's supply chains are all feeling the shock. Why did Poland take this step? What's happening behind the scenes? And how will this decision change the balance of power across the region? Stay tuned, because in the next few minutes, we're breaking down how one border closure could reshape global trade and ignite new tensions across Europe. Hello everyone, welcome back to Strike Point Media. Please subscribe and like my videos, because today's story is one of the biggest geopolitical shifts Europe has seen in years. Poland has blocked its rail border with Belarus, cutting off Moscow's crucial land bridge to Europe. This single move has sent shockwaves through trade routes, political alliances, and global markets. What exactly happened? Why did Poland take this drastic step? And what does it mean for the future of Russia, Belarus, and the rest of the world? Let's dive deep into this unfolding crisis. It started quietly at first. For years, the Belarus-Poland border served as a lifeline for goods moving between Russia, Belarus, and Europe. Freight trains carried everything from electronics and machinery to food, cars, and energy supplies. This route was part of the massive Eurasian trade corridor, the so-called land bridge connecting China to Europe through Russia and Belarus. But suddenly, without much warning, Poland shut it down. Border gates closed, rail lines went silent, and containers worth billions of dollars sat motionless. Within hours, satellite images showed hundreds of freight wagons stranded, stretching for kilometers on both sides of the border. This wasn't a small trade disruption. The Belarus-Poland corridor carried nearly 90% of all overland freight between China and Europe. Every day, dozens of trains would cross this route. It was faster than sea transport and far cheaper than air. Companies relied on this corridor to keep factories running on time, to deliver products to European markets, and to sustain a delicate balance between East and West. When Poland announced the closure, the impact was instant. Prices on logistics routes surged. Freight companies scrambled to reroute cargo, and European importers started calculating losses. But the question everyone asked was, why now? Officially, Poland said it was about security. Over the past months, Russian drones had crossed into Polish airspace. Military drills between Russia and Belarus had intensified along the borders. Warsaw accused Moscow and Minsk of deliberate provocations, and tensions reached a breaking point. Closing the rail link was not just an economic decision. It was a political statement. A message that Poland would not allow its territory or infrastructure to be used as a backdoor for Russian influence or potential aggression. From Moscow's perspective, this move was nothing short of a blockade. For Russia, the land bridge through Belarus into Poland and Germany was an essential artery. It allowed the Kremlin to bypass sea routes that are more vulnerable to sanctions and NATO surveillance. Now, that artery has been cut off. Freight that once traveled across Poland must find longer, costlier alternatives through Central Asia or the Caspian region. Each of those routes adds days, even weeks, to delivery times. The economic pressure on Russia and Belarus grows heavier. Inside Belarus, the situation is even more tense. Belarus has long depended on trade with both Russia and the European Union. The border closure isolates it further. Thousands of workers employed at logistics hubs near Brest and Grodno suddenly find themselves idle. Warehouses that used to hum with activity now stand silent. Local businesses complain of losses, and frustration quietly grows. For Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, this is another blow to an already fragile economy heavily reliant on Moscow's support. Meanwhile, in Poland, the mood is defiant. Government officials claim that national security must come before economic convenience. The message is clear. Poland will not allow Belarus or Russia to use its territory as leverage against NATO or the European Union. The move has strong public support, especially after months of drone incidents and rising fears of spillover from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Polish citizens see this as a necessary act of self-defense. The closure has also triggered a domino effect across the global logistics network. Shipping companies are now shifting freight back to sea routes through the Suez Canal. Ports in Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Gdansk are preparing for increased volumes, but sea transport is slower, and that means supply chains will stretch thinner. Factories in Europe may face delays in receiving raw materials, while exporters in Asia will need to adjust schedules and pricing. Economists warn that if this closure continues, inflation in certain goods could rise again, especially in sectors dependent on fast rail logistics. Behind the scenes, intelligence analysts are calling this more than a border closure. They call it a strategic choke point, a pressure valve that Poland and NATO can use to signal Moscow that Europe's eastern flank will not remain passive. The symbolism is powerful. For decades, Russia relied on its overland links to maintain influence and control in trade. But now, those very routes are being turned against it. Every closed checkpoint and silent rail line is a reminder that geography, once Moscow's strength, can also become its weakness. The international reaction has been mixed. European leaders publicly support Poland's right to defend its borders, but privately, many worry about the consequences for trade. Germany, which benefits greatly from the rail freight that passes through Poland, faces economic side effects. China, too, is watching closely. Beijing invested heavily in the Eurasian railway network under the Belt and Road Initiative. The closure undermines those investments and forces China to consider alternative routes through Kazakhstan, Turkey, and the Middle Corridor. What once looked like a seamless transcontinental bridge now appears fragile and uncertain. At the same time, Russia is already looking for ways to adapt. Kremlin-controlled media call the Polish move a provocation and predict that Moscow will respond with new trade alliances in Asia. Russian transport officials talk about redirecting freight to the northern route via the Arctic or the southern corridors through Iran. But experts say these alternatives are expensive and logistically complex. The truth is, the Belarus-Poland route was unique, short, efficient, and deeply integrated into the European network. Replacing it won't be easy. As days turn into weeks, the economic impact grows clearer. Businesses across Europe report delayed shipments and rising freight costs. Insurance rates for cross-border transport increase due to instability. Investors start to reassess the reliability of Eastern European routes. In Belarus, warehouses are overflowing with undelivered goods. On social media, videos of empty rail yards and stranded trains go viral, symbolizing the economic paralysis of a region caught between politics and commerce. For everyday citizens, the closure may seem distant, but its ripple effects are real. Prices on imported electronics, car parts, and machinery could increase. Trucking routes will face additional congestion as more freight shifts to roads. Logistics hubs in Poland may eventually recover with new trade flows, but the uncertainty will remain. Every business connected to the Eurasian land route must now factor in the risk of sudden political shutdowns. What makes this moment historic is not just the economic cost but the message it sends. The closure of this corridor marks the end of an era when East-West trade could flow freely through the heart of Europe despite political tensions. It shows that in today's world, geopolitics can instantly redraw economic maps. It's a reminder that supply chains are not only built on steel and infrastructure, but on trust, stability, and diplomacy. So what comes next? Analysts predict that Poland may reopen some crossings eventually, but only under strict monitoring. The corridor might resume partial operations, but the trust has been broken. Businesses will diversify routes to avoid future shutdowns. China will strengthen its southern links through Turkey and Central Asia. Russia will seek to deepen ties with Iran and India. and Europe will continue to fortify its eastern borders, turning security into the new currency of trade. This story is more than a headline, it's a turning point. It shows how one border closure can shake global markets, shift alliances, and expose the fragile balance that keeps modern trade moving. It's a clash of economics, politics, and power, all converging on a few hundred kilometers of rail track between Poland and Belarus. As the situation develops, one thing is certain. The collapse of Moscow's land bridge is not just about trains or trade. It's about the future of how nations connect, compete, and cooperate in a world that's becoming more divided, yet more interconnected than ever before. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like this video. Share it with others who follow global events, and that brings us to the end of today's deep dive. What we're witnessing right now isn't just a border closure. It's the beginning of a new chapter in Europe's power struggle. Poland's decision to shut the Belarus rail link has exposed how fragile the world's supply routes really are. What used to be a simple trade path has turned into a frontline of strategy, politics, and influence. Russia's overland lifeline has been cut, Belarus is feeling the pressure, and Europe is learning that economic speed means nothing without security. The map of global trade is changing before our eyes, and every nation involved is now recalculating its next move. The real question is, will this be a temporary disruption or the start of a long-term divide between East and West? If you've stayed till the end, thank you for watching. Your support keeps Strike Point Media growing and helps us bring more stories that connect world events with real impact. Don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about Poland's bold decision. And of course, subscribe for more geopolitical updates, military insights, and world news explained clearly and powerfully. This is Strike Point Media, where global events meet real analysis. See you in the next one, and until then, stay informed and stay sharp. And subscribe to Strike Point Media for more deep analyses of the world's biggest geopolitical stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.